Yeah, so you get like an optional soundtrack, which is like all this is really cool. And it got me thinking. There was a little bit of talk on the internet spaces about remasters and remakes, specifically remakes. I saw a little conversation about how people are getting very, I don't know, remake happy, where it's like every game needs a remake or something. And it was tipped off by somebody saying that Persona 4 needed a remake badly. And I'm like, a full, like a remake? A remake? Dude, come on. Like, really? Like, you can't. Part of it is, well, number one, there's been a number of really good remakes in the past couple years. Number two is, I think people are, I don't know, I think there's a real aversion to engaging with anything that is like even kind of old or a little bit adverse to your super modern gamer sensibilities. I get it when it's something like System Shock, because that is, there is a barrier there. I will admit that, right? I made like an hour plus long video about how great that game is. I'll admit that there's a barrier there. So I get it, right? I don't know if Final Fantasy VII needed a remake. I don't think Persona 3 needed a remake, to be honest. I really don't. I was thinking about this. I think I would have been happy as a fan of the original game. I played Portable. I think I would have been happy if they just took Fez, Persona 3 Fez, however you pronounce it, gave it a little bit of like a brush up, like a graphical improvement, include some like side goodies and stuff like that, like art, or those games need a music like jukebox mode or something like that. Do something like that, add little side stuff, behind the scenes things. And then I would say the main gameplay thing would be like add in the option to have manual party control from Portable. Just add the option, if you want to play with the original where you have to like give commands and set different like styles for the different characters, do that, but like give people the option if they don't want to put up with that bullshit. Just give them the option. I don't know how feasible that is because of hardware and all that stuff. I feel like maybe like at a certain cause I wonder like because so the FemC was not included. The problem with Persona 3 is that, number one, it didn't have a really easily accessible re-release on modern systems. The other thing is that there was never, if you were going to re-release it, there was never a true single one definitive version of the game. Because you have the original release, and then you have Fez, which most people would probably say would be the superior release because of the extra content and all that. But then you also have Portable, which has an entire other playable character, the FemC, the female main character. And that has its own, the FemC version of the story is like, it's its own version of the story, where it's like generally the same, but there's like different character interactions, there's different, you can have relationships with the boys now. Can't be gay before, but now you can be straight, but as a girl. And I know a lot of people hate, like I've had people describe to me some of the things that happen in the FemC route, and it sounds fucking stupid, but it is part of the game, right? And when they were Atlas gave this interview about the remake, and they were like, yeah, we didn't include the FemC because it would require so much work to make all of that new content and have to like reanimate new stuff because there's all the like anime cutscenes. We'd have to make new versions of all that, and part of me is like, what if you just didn't like spend an entire new game's worth of budget on making a remake and just took all those ideas I just said of just taking like Fez and like brushing it up and re-optimizing it. And then you just took some of the money that you would have spent on a full-on remake and added that stuff. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a technical expert. I don't know how feasible that would be. I don't know if that's realistic. Maybe they talked about that. Maybe they talked about doing that. I just feel like, damn, you probably spent like 2 or 3 years making that remake and spent a lot of money on it. And you maybe could have gotten something that you maybe could have spent a fraction of that and gotten basically the same thing. I know that the remake had, I don't know them off the top of my head. I haven't played the remake. I know the remake did have some changes in gameplay stuff. If it was feasible to include things like, oh hey, optional party stuff, like manual control versus auto control, and include that as options, I don't see a reason why you maybe couldn't include like different balancing or anything like that, or whatever else they made. What were the changes actually? P3 reload changes. Complete overhaul. Modernization of the original game. User interface, combat, and audio. Okay, graphics. Link episodes. So, like a little more story stuff. More activities. Tartarus is easier to navigate. Combat improvements. So a couple new things and balances and stuff like that. And okay, I mean, like, all that's well and good, but like, did the game need that? I'm just asking from like a practical perspective. All those changes could be totally good. I see the story stuff maybe, but like, how much of that stuff is like, did the game need a massive rebalance, or like, is it just okay to appreciate the game as it was? You know, like, I don't know if I'm being like old thing. I'm not even saying the new thing is good. The new thing is bad. It's probably good. I've heard it's very good. I'd probably like it because I love Persona 3. But I just wonder, like, how many games, instead of remaking them, could we just give it some kind of like, you know, like this Doom 1+2 treatment with like, okay, it's not a full-on remake. Like, why the fuck would you need to remake Doom? just port it to modern systems, give it a little technical brush up, you know, include a bunch of options and settings, make the menu, maybe, you know, add whatever shell you want over it with like a bunch of things to, like, essentially what I imagine what they've done is make their own source port. Just make your own source port of Doom, the Doom engine, and include all the options that you want and options for multiplayer and all the content and stuff that was in the previous releases, and just make a big packaged alternate soundtracks. And there's like a little gallery thing where you can look at development stuff that was scrapped, and some of it's really interesting. There's like beta versions of the Doom guy, like head sprite. There's versions where he has an afro for some reason. It just as like a joke, but stuff like that's great. Love looking at stuff like that. I think a lot more games would benefit from a treatment. Like, that's the equivalent to me of like one of those Criterion releases. I would prefer something like that, you know? Remaster, like a good, when an old movie gets like a good 4K remaster that makes it look way better, that you can appreciate on like a really nice screen. And it comes with a bunch of bonus features, commentary tracks, behind the scenes stuff, previously unreleased materials, you know, like a nice release like that. Like, that's what I would prefer for games. And I think that there's a very different sentiment to that versus remake everything. Because remaking it almost implies that like the original game is so outdated that it's not worth going back to. But these kind of like these sort of like premium remaster treatment, that treatment is like, I like it more because it's more like this is a piece of art, and it deserves to be playable, and it deserves to have a release that is easily accessible, that is up to date with like all the stuff around the game to make it just easier to just hop into and experience for a new player. Someone who's never played Doom before is going to have a much easier time hopping into this new remaster and just getting the experience, right? And treating it with like some respect. Like, this is actually something to be revered. This is like an important piece of culture. I prefer that sort of remaster treatment. Hey, we've also been getting a lot of good remasters as of late, you know? I like stuff like that. That personally, that's what I would prefer. Are there things that need remake? What would need a remake? I don't even know. Like, at what point... Here's an interesting question. At what point do you think a remake becomes necessary? Because, okay, obviously there's remakes that are made for money. This happens in movies all the time. We are remaking this movie because the brand name, right? But in games, it's like, I don't know, it's a little different. I feel remakes for games are like... I don't know. Sometimes it might... I feel like I have no clue, you know? I think that games that need that are most deserving of a remake it would probably be some kind of like AAA Naughty Dog action drama game that already has like 2 different releases on the prior 2 consoles and a remaster. I think you should probably remake that and its sequel, which is still available to buy on every single platform and will be forever. Like, obviously that kind of a game, like Last of Us is like some old junky fucked up piece of shit that, like, honestly it was worse than System Shock. Honestly, like, I don't know how the fuck anyone played that in 2013. 2014? 2013. But like, oh, hang on, The Last of Us Part 1, that was because there was Last of Us Remastered. Last of Us Part 1, oh my god, finally it's playable. They changed the door textures. Thank fucking God. I was not going to play a game with those shitty-ass door textures. I mean, what is this? Like, what is this? The year 1000? Christ. But really, like, at what point do you think a game needs to be remade? Obviously, from my perspective, it's like... I'm trying to think of, like, the most unapproachable thing by a modern gamer. The first thing my mind went to is like Ultima 1. I tried to play Ultima 1. I understand it, okay? I'm not going to call it a bad game. I won't. I don't think it's a bad game. However, it's like, okay, well, this was definitely from 1980. Or was it 79? Christ. That game is very simple. You can grasp the entirety of Ultima 1 in like 10 minutes. You can basically experience everything the game has to offer, unless you care about the fact that the thing that you're fighting has like a different name that's like a boss name or something like that. Unless you just really need to see what the bosses look like, you can basically experience it in 10 minutes. And I still think that if that game was to get a modern re-release, which they'll never do because EA doesn't give a fuck about any of its old properties, I think I would prefer that it just got a remaster instead of a remake. I don't think it's like, what would even be the point of remaking Ultima 1? To tell like the most bare bones non-existent fantasy story of you have to go into these 4 different dungeons and kill the boss at the end to save the day. Why? Just remaster it. I would there should be like there was like an Ultima collection. Uh, that is is that a ski resort? What is that? It's in Rome? Ultra luxury private vill. Okay. No, the Ultima collection released. Oh, this was released in 1996. Okay. Yeah. No, I would literally say just like make a collection of the Ultima series. Sorry, 1998. You could easily make a complete collection of every single Ultima game and fit it into like a modern. It wouldn't even take that long to download. Maybe Ultima 9. It's like a slightly bigger game, but like, are you kidding me? Like it on a modern internet speed, even on like a bad internet speed, it would probably take you like under 10 seconds to download Ultima 2. You know, like I would prefer that, and just I would love that. That's a series that should get a Criterion style treatment. A collection, have a museum, show why these games are important to like the art form, to technology, to like storytelling and all that. Did you know that Ultima 3 randomly figured this out? I should have included this in my LGBT video. Ultima 3 is like might be the first game with a non-binary character in it, or that lets you play as a non-binary character. That game was made in like 1992 or something, and sorry, 1982. And you can play, your character can be male, female, or other, and it's just there. And you know, it doesn't really have any effect. I don't think that has any effect on gameplay or visuals at all, because it's like the same tiny little sprite no matter what. But like, they let you do it. I think it's so funny that it's so funny that like when that Starfield thing happened and that guy was like, "The fucking pronouns," and it's like, dog, this has been Ultima 3, dude. Had like part of the foundation of the entire Western role-playing game genre. Like, they were doing it back then. It's not that fucking crazy. But all those guys just, it's all. I don't even want to get into that shit. Anyway, that's like the type of treatment that should get. Fucking Ultima 4 is such a cool, like the whole Age of Enlightenment trilogy is so cool, 4 through 6, and like it's such an interesting. It's so interesting. I could talk about those games for a while, but like those should get like a nice remaster, a nice collection. Just dedicated to this whole series. Include the freaking like Stygian Abyss and like the first person games and all that. And I don't think it would be hard. I really don't think it would be that hard. Anyway. Yeah, that's the Doom 1+2 remaster. Did I have anything else to say about it? It's really cool. I appreciate them doing this. I like stuff like this a lot. I think it's really neat that Bethesda and id have actually been, in the last couple years, very proactive about not only maintaining their old properties like Doom and Quake, but actually giving them a lot of love with these remasters, right? Like, I think everyone can be happy. So that's very cool.